Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is going to be tips for the academic sonologist. My name is Matt Fields. I'm the ultrasound director at Kaiser Permanente, and this is Vicki Noble. She's the ultrasound director emeritus, vice chair for academic affairs at University Hospital Cleveland Medical Center. And so this is just going to be a short talk, talking about career development for you sono gurus, sono nerds out there that have chosen the brilliant academic path. And I apologize, I didn't get the SAEM template in time, so it's just very, very generic looking. We have no disclosures. This is my part. I'm going to talk a little bit about mentorship and sponsorship, managing your time, showing your value, and the importance of your team. All right, so for those of you who have just graduated from Ultrasound Fellowship, congratulations. You can toss your intercavitary probe up in the air and move on. Except probably shouldn't toss that because it's actually pretty valuable and you're not making money yet. You know, at least your fellowship is behind you and you can feel good. But now that you're landing in your first academic job, you're probably like, hey, what the heck? How do I do this? You know, what do I do to succeed? And more importantly, how do I get promoted? But fortunately, the pathway for promotion from clinical instructor to professor is really no different for the sono guru than it is for the EMS guy, for the tox guy. That's pretty well laid out with your own department. Has its own guidelines, and there's a lot of great talks on how to get promoted and all that stuff. The one thing that is different about being the ultrasound person is that you have this great tool that'll kind of help you along the way to get promoted quickly. Yeah, and one of the great things, or one of the things that I will urge about being an ultrasound person is to learn how to use all these great animations and slides and keynotes. That's definitely something you need to pick up. Helps out a lot. But I think you'll find that this is actually pretty easy to do, getting promoted. I actually got promoted, very quickly. Everybody in the ultrasound division, we all got promoted very quickly because there's just so many great things that you can do with ultrasound to meet those goals. And so it really isn't a problem, I think, as long as you just kind of, take a few key points home, hopefully from this lecture and other people. All right, so mentorship is kind of the first thing, and one of the great things about being an ultrasound fellow is that you immediately come out with a mentor, and this person is going to be very pivotal in your career. This, the statements from my fellowship director still resonate with me. He was kind of a tough love guy, He told me a lot of good stuff, as Anthony Dean from University of Pennsylvania. But he got me started specifically really well with research and with education. But as I got through my fellowship and got out of my fellowship, I kind of realized that, the great Jedi Master that he wasn't the Jedi Master of the universe. And it very quickly became important to me that I realized I needed to expand my mentorship. And so there's this concept of piecemeal mentorship where you basically take all the things that you're interested, all your passions, and you kind of lay those things out. And you really should almost have a mentor for each of those things. So for me, it was research was one of them I was really interested in. Global health was actually something I became interested in. Professional development was very important. Scholarship, and then leadership and politics. These are all kind of my interests that I started to develop over my my first 5-10 years of my career. And what I found is that I really needed to find a mentor for each one of these to actually be successful in it. And I hope that you guys will do the same thing. Your fellowship director is the perfect person to introduce you to these people, but you should seek them out yourselves. You might ask yourself, how do I get more mentors? And obviously, this is what you're doing now, being at SAEM, is I would say the bread and butter for me. And it's one thing to just come to the conference, but I would actually really recommend that you get involved in a committee or present research. Being on a committee takes you to that next level of interaction. So you start by having phone calls with people. The next thing you know, you're having a more intimate relationship in which you're getting to know each other's schedules, and next thing you know, they're teaching you things, they're telling you how you can do things better, and you've latched onto that person as a mentor. And then all of a sudden, this person in your back pocket that you can reach out to and say, ask them quick questions and how to solve problems. So this is definitely something also whenever you present research and you find somebody comes up to you and says, hey, this is how you can do that project better. It's often somebody like Shrikar or Dave or somebody that says, and then you say, okay, that's interesting. Let me actually latch onto you as a mentor. So don't be afraid. Of course, you can reach out and just, direct contact is not a bad way. You can say, hey, you do cool stuff I'm interested in. You can email them. Social media is obviously becoming a more important way, and being active on social media is a way that you can connect with people and develop relationships that way. Then the other thing you need to think about, too, is expanding your sponsorship. And how is mentorship different from sponsorship? Mentors are people who help you with your skill set, whereas sponsors are those kind of people that help you get opportunity. And so that your sponsor is somebody more like your chair of your department, or your vice chair, or the dean of your medical school, or somebody. And so, so it's important to kind of have those people to help introduce you to people. How do you expand your sponsorship? It's not as straightforward as expanding your mentorship, I found, but for me, and I'm obviously interested to hear any other suggestions. For me, this is about having other people introduce you to other people, getting endorsement, and then reaching outside of your network of your department, outside your department, medical school, and in other places. This is a book I would recommend reading. It's called The Art of Woo, or Woo stands for Winning Others Over. And in the book, they kind of talk about, it's actually for, it's meant more for business, but applies, I think, to academic medicine very well, in that it kind of talks about how the person, if you're trying to reach somebody, let's say like maybe the dean of your medical school, the direct route may not be the best way. Maybe the best way is to reach the person that can reach them. So maybe the vice chair in your department, who also has an associate dean title, who does have that ear. And it's way more valuable when that person speaks highly of you than when you try to sell yourself, because these people don't have time, and they really rely on the people close to them. So something to think about and check out. You could probably read it, one day sitting on a beach. It's a pretty short read. All right. So time is the currency of academics. Okay, we didn't go into academics for the pay. Hopefully you didn't. But yeah, like reality check. But so it's important to value your time. And I would actually really recommend, this is an exercise. This was actually, doing this exercise was actually the reason I kind of wanted to do this talk, which is I would add up your time and think about everything you do at some point in your early career. I think everybody should do this. I never did. I was the ultrasound director for 8 years at Thomas Jefferson, and I never did this. My protected time was just given to me by my chair, and I just kind of took it, and I was like, okay, great. I'll just use what I get. And then I was recruited to Kaiser in San Diego, and one of the first tasks I got was to say, hey, how many FTEs does the ultrasound division need? And they wanted to justify it. And my administrator, or my department chair there, was a spreadsheet kind of guy. This was his language. And so I sat down. I was kind of nervous about doing this, because I thought, well, what if we fall short? What if I actually can't show that we need as many hours as we could, as we do, and get? And you quickly realize that you're undervalued. And doing this, all of a sudden, I realized how many more hours I was doing than I was given, and this would have been true at my previous job. And I just don't know why it took me so long to do this. I break it, so this is simplified. Anybody who wants it, just let me know, and I'll send you our full spreadsheet to do this. But I break it down by hours per event, number of events per year, hours per week. And one of the things was, when I took this back to him, he got kind of nervous, and he was like, "We can't give you more hours." And I was like, "Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. We're okay. We can eat those other hours. We love what we do, but it protects you even more to show that you have more value than what they're getting more out of you than what they're putting in, and a big return on investment." How many hours are right? So these numbers are nebulous, right? These are some commonly quoted numbers. Certainly 28. I think it's pretty difficult to do anything really productive academically at more than 28. I just, as a kind of a straight number. Hopefully you're getting down to lower numbers. How do you get more protected time? I wish I could just say, here's the answer to that, and you wouldn't even need to come to my talk. I could have just tweeted it, but it's about learning the currency of your division in your department. Is the currency research? Is the currency clinical service and return on investment? Is it the fellowship? So just learn the currency of your department and think about that. And also, it's about getting in the mindset of your chair. Like, what is he thinking? Who does he answer to, or she answer to? So it's about really getting inside other people's head and making sure you make that important. one of the things I would say about getting protected time is making sure that you protect it. Okay, so it's up front, getting as much time as you can, but then protecting the time you have. And this is where you being efficient comes into play. And I would say, you know, one of the things I learned is to be wary of people that want to take your time for free. And so these are some typical suspects. Industry, always happy to take your time, you know, talk to you, give you, you know, as much free time as you want to give them. Other departments are happy to have you teach them. The medical school, it loves to have people come and teach for free. And that's great, but sometimes they can take advantage of that desire to teach and not value. So any of these can lead to a meaningful relationship, and you can do well with any of these groups. And it's important to engage them. But I always, you know, set up a free consultation, you know, 30 minutes, an hour. But be careful before you go in deeper than that, because you got to think about your overall budget of time and being productive and meeting your bottom lines. And to do that, I kind of like to align my goals. I think about what's my funding stream. For me at Kaiser, one of the things is the fellowship is really important to our funding stream. It just is. I have to recruit fellows, and that's just something I prioritize. And I think about it whenever somebody wants me to cut something or add something else. I think about how it impacts that. And you know, then I think about other stuff, what matters to my chair, to my fellows, to the dean, and ultimately what matters to you. A few quick tips for time management that I've learned. Don't let QA be your downfall. We all have to do QA. I would recommend delegating it, but you don't want this to be a grind, right? So you got to figure out ways to still be productive and get QA done. Don't reinvent educational tools that are out there. It seems simple, but just think about that before you're starting over from scratch. It's probably been done like 10 times already. So another A-word lecture, another whatever. Don't provide services that others can do for you for ultrasound. So we have biomeds service our equipment. We have department people stock all the ultrasound equipment. We have staff take care of the equipment location, and we have people, somebody involved with helping troubleshoot our workflow. So it's not me that just because the studies aren't downloading has to go and troubleshoot that. Try if you've got that set up, great. If you don't have that set up, I would recommend thinking about it. Avoid perfectionism. This has nothing to do with ultrasound. I think it's just good advice in general. You know, the getting from nothing to something is, you know, one distance, but getting from something to perfection takes almost twice as long, and people don't notice it. And if you think your email may be too long, it is, so shorten it. Okay, finally, showing your value. Don't be afraid to tell people what you do. Your chair does not know what you do. He doesn't. Nobody, the people in your department, they don't know what you do, and if you don't say it, if you don't talk about it, then the perception is you're not doing that much. So I'm like from Oklahoma. I'm supposed to be humble. This was very hard for me, but I learned to do it. Every staff meeting, I asked my chair, can you give me 5 minutes at every staff meeting for me to give ultrasound updates to the department? And it's like, you know, whatever. It sounds silly, but it really matters. Publishing, obviously, that's our product, and I wish that I had more time and we could talk about publishing, but these are lectures in itself. I would recommend checking this out if you don't know about it, the SAEM Research Learning Series. If you put your phone up to this, it actually captures it, and it gives you the link. Anybody know that? That's really cool. The QR code. You just put your camera on this and it'll, is it working? No, just put your photo, just put your camera. It worked? Isn't that so cool? Yeah, I just wanted to do that. Anyway, this is a really good series. Actually, a lot of the speakers in this are ultrasound people. So, and then one other thing that you might think about in showing your value is media. So we had a media consultant at Jefferson who reached out to us and actually got us got me into Philadelphia Magazine, like showing some of the stuff I did with global health, and then they even they came and talked to us, and they were actually interested in ultrasound guidance for IV, for difficult IV sticks, and did this article, and this got a lot of mileage out of this and a lot of attention, and this was really, you know, made a lot of people in my department happy. So super easy on my part, doing a research study that I could, my chairman would fall asleep at, trying to describe. It took way more effort than this, which, you know, really made him happy. So think about it. And, you know, just think about just doing cool stuff in ultrasound. I mean, ultrasound is one of these great places where you get to do a lot of neat stuff, and, you know, stuff like Sonogames and Ultrafest and global health. So don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone. And my final thought for kind of your early careers, the importance of teamwork. I didn't realize this until I got there, which is that if I didn't have a good team, it would have been a lot more difficult to do a lot of the cool stuff and be as happy as I was. So if you have the ability to, if you're already in a team, great. If you have the ability to be part of a team or increase the people in your team, I really think you should. It's really valuable. All right, and so now for the who everybody came to really see, Dr. Vicki Noble.
So a couple of things I'm just going to highlight that Matt just said, which I think are really important. One is when you're in an academic place, to make QA fun and double dip. You know, make that some teaching opportunities for your med students, for your residents. Make it part of your rotation, because you have to do it anyway, and there's tons of learning that happens out of QA. And so making that time not only valuable for your efficiency and your operations, but also for your education, it would be silly not to use it that way. And so I think that really helps people, because that's probably 4 to 6 hours a week of the division's business. And then the second thing is building a team, because when you're doing all this, I think that's one of the best parts of ultrasound, is that it's actually not just the ultrasound, it's discussing the case, discussing the management, doing the teaching, you know, a lot of the travel and the global health stuff that you can do. And so building that team makes it really fun, because there's a lot of steps along the way to career advancement. And so you want to surround yourself, we're pretty social people, emergency medicine people. And so I think just surrounding yourself with people you like spending time with means that you're going to enjoy that much more the stuff you're doing. Okay, but why do this, right? Why go through all this stuff to get promoted? Why, you know, track all your time? Why do all this extra stuff? And why not just, you know, work shifts and get paid? And there's no right answer to that. You guys have to answer that. Everybody in the room will have to answer that for themselves. My thing was that ultrasound actually gave me a lot of power. And I didn't recognize it at first. This is true not just of women, but of men too. That ultrasound is a niche that you are filling that gives you tons of access. All of a sudden, I was talking to deans, I was talking at the med school, I was talking to other departments. People in the surgery department knew me more than the EMS guy, and you know, they knew my name more than they knew the ICU coordinator. And so it gives you tons of access. And you don't do that just because you're a megalomaniac. I mean, maybe, you know, some of us are, but like, you do that because that power then gives you freedom to choose how to spend your time. When you're the low guy on the totem pole, you have to do what everybody else tells you to do. But when you have a skill, and when you have a presence, and when you have access, you get to choose how to spend your day. And I'm telling you, it has meant that I can do this job for 20 more years. If I had to just come and do what somebody else told me to do every day, it gets really old after a while. And so I think one of the benefits that I didn't realize at the time was all that effort and teaching and visibility meant that I controlled my destiny so much more than my colleagues who were at the same level as me, but who hadn't, you know, had that opportunity, because ultrasound gave me that opportunity. And then the other thing I'll say, and I'm saying this, my new colleague is in the room, so you can just close your ears a little bit. But, you know, you guys, a lot of you in the room know me, and you knew I lived in Boston for a long time, and I was the ultrasound director. But one of the things that ultrasound does for you is all that visibility means that people know you that you don't even know you. And so, you know, for example, you know, I was enjoying my job, I was enjoying my life in Boston, and I got a phone call that said, would you like to interview for this job in Cleveland? And it's an administrative leadership job. And I didn't even know I was being considered. I didn't even know that somebody knew me in Cleveland, you know, that was even an opportunity. And I think the reason that it happened, not because they Googled me, because if you Google me, you see this woman over here who I think a lot of people know. She's way more famous than I am, but she's very prolific, and I am not a witch. She's the one who's the shamanistic healer. But I was out there, right? Like, so I was on Twitter, I was on podcasts, I was on, you know, teaching. I was like meeting people at conferences. I was on committees. And so all of that networking meant that your name is out there, and then people may consider you for stuff that you weren't even considering for yourself. And so, you know, I hadn't planned to do anything in sort of admin and vice chair and all that kind of stuff, but people were considering me because they knew my presence, and that was all because of ultrasound. you know, I talk a lot, so I mean, I think that was one of the other problems. Is probably people were like knew me because I talk so much. But anyway, I think that one of the only reasons that I'm in Cleveland was because of ultrasound and that visibility that it gave me. And I think a lot of you are pretty, you know, new in academic medicine and new in your career, but you don't know what's going to happen 20 years down the road, and you don't know what opportunities there will be for you. And so I think one of the things that happens naturally with ultrasound is the teaching and the networking and the leadership skills that you develop, the presentation skills that all of you guys are better at keynote than any other doctor in the House of Medicine. Honestly, ultrasound rocks it on that type of thing. And so having all of that, I think, puts you out there and gives you opportunities later in your career that you weren't even considering for yourself. So, you know, now I do stuff with program director, I do operation stuff, I do networking, I do system stuff for the hospital, and none of that was stuff that I was probably even qualified for, quite frankly, but people knew me, and they knew that I was a hard worker and that I could communicate, and so they considered me for jobs that I wasn't aware were even out there. So I think ultrasound can really lead you to a place that you may not expect, but some of it is just putting yourself out there, networking, and being visible as you do that. Okay. Any questions? Any of you guys have questions? Yeah, Nick. Well, my chair just left the room, so now I can tell the real story. So there's two things that Matt said that I think we should talk about a little bit, which is protected time. And I can tell you on this side now that I'm on the other side of the fence where everyone is coming to me with requests for protected time, don't be too greedy. Because if you are too greedy in the beginning, I can tell you from where I sit and where a lot of the administrators sit in academic medicine, if you overshoot in that first thing, you poison a relationship that you need that person to help sponsor you for stuff. Now, don't undersell yourself, right? You need to be valued, and you need to be valued for your worth. But there's a lot of data out there now on what sort of the average buy-down time is, what the average hours people work. And so don't go crazy and ask for something way outside the mean, because that comes across to people a little, now that I'm on the other side of the fence, as a little bit like, you know, oversold. The other thing I think is that, like Matt said, if you don't tell people what you're doing, they think you're doing nothing. So you have to advocate for yourself. The 5 minutes of faculty meeting is genius. You can do a little bit of teaching, do a little bit of a summary of what's going on, a little bit of all the activities you have coming up in the next month. Then people know what you're doing, and it creates a buzz that I think is really helpful, because, you know, I'm not paying attention to all of my academic faculty now and what they're doing every day. So you have to kind of put it in people's face a little bit. And then I think the other thing is helping to mentor, and this is natural for ultrasound, but, you know, I'm doing a lot of the kind of residency stuff and faculty development stuff, and ultrasound teachers are natural mentors for the residents, for the med students, and for the junior faculty. And so put yourself in positions where you're leading a lot of med students in some QA review or something, or you're getting a lot of the residents their research project because they're doing stuff in ultrasound, or you're, you know, bringing along junior faculty when you go teach at ASAP or in Indonesia or wherever you go. Bring your junior faculty with you, because you're giving people opportunities. And as a chair, vice chair kind of person, I see that, and I see that you're helping me develop my faculty and helping me develop my residents, and that you're helping me. So that makes a good impression. That's a good question, though. Any other questions? How many of you guys are instructors? How many are assistant professors? How many are associate professors? Are there any professors in the room? Nice. He looks like a professor. Yeah. How many fellows? Are any of you fellows in the room? Yeah. So, you know, I think the instructor to assistant professor, like Matt said, happens without trying in ultrasound, just because you're teaching and you're involved in stuff and you're on committees. But assistant professor to associate professor is harder. And so I think for me, the thing that really made my career go was getting on 1 or 2 committees at ASAP or SAEM, because then I met a bunch of people, I got invited to do talks, I got invited to do grand rounds, and so that next level was really propelled by the networking I did in these ultrasound organizations. I don't know, Dave, you're a professor, do you have any other things to say?
I think it is. I think it's a lot easier now than when we started, because I think there's a lot more of the path cleared out. With the emergency medicine has all the documents, and I think it's a lot easier because we were starting from scratch where those things were in place. And I think you just got to go to the ASAP website, join organizations,
Yep.
and reach out. I think that's some great advice.
Yeah, I think now there's actually one of the challenges now because there's so many new roles with medical school and system-wide, and we actually have to be a little bit more focused in what we want to do, because you can't do them all for sure, and so that's actually a challenge I think that has come up. But yeah.
One other comment you said, Matt, which was awesome, is that people think that mentorship is like one mentor. It's almost like you have a mentorship board, and I thought that was very poignant. I don't think everybody thinks like that. That you have mentors for different pieces of your activity. I thought that was a really
All right, I think the TEE people, because I recognize them
All right,
coming in the room. So, all right, if you guys have any questions, feel free to come find us afterwards. We'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks.